The snow fell thick and silent on the evening of December 24th, softening the edges of a small town that had already gone quiet. Christmas lights blinked behind frosted windows, muted and distant, as if the world itself were holding its breath. The street lamps cast pale circles on the pavement, and every sound seemed swallowed by the white air. Noah Carter stepped out of the corner store with a paper bag tucked under his arm. Bread, soup, milk, enough to get through the next few days. At 35, he carried himself like a man older than his years, broad-shouldered, careful in his movements, his face marked by a tiredness that had nothing to do with work. He pulled his coat tighter as the cold bit through the seams and started down the sidewalk. He worked nights as a janitor, cleaning offices long after the city had gone home, paid the bills, kept the lights on, and most nights it kept his thoughts quiet. Tonight, though, the silence felt heavier. As Noah passed the post office, he slowed. The building was dark, its doors locked, a thin layer of snow gathering on the steps. That was when he saw them. Two small figures sat huddled together near the entrance, wrapped in a torn blanket that did little to keep out the cold. Their shoes were too thin for winter, their knees pulled tight to their chests. Beside them lay a battered stuffed bear, one ear missing, and an overturned paper cup half buried in snow. Noah stopped walking. For a moment he thought he might be seeing things. Christmas did that sometimes. Made people imagine what they were afraid of, or what they wished they could fix. But then one of the girls lifted her head. She couldn't have been more than 6. Her hair was light and tangled, her cheeks red and chapped from the cold. Her eyes, though, were what held him. They were too tired, too watchful. "Do you know where our mama went?" she asked. Her voice was barely louder than the wind. Noah set the grocery bag down slowly, as if any sudden movement might scare them away. He crouched a few steps back, keeping his distance. Years of raising his daughter had taught him that frightened children needed space as much as warmth. "Hey there," he said gently. "How long have you been sitting here?" The girls didn't answer. The one who had spoken clutched the blanket tighter. The other stared straight ahead, her small hands locked around the stuffed bear. They were quiet in a way that didn't feel like shyness. Felt learned. Noah's chest tightened. He glanced up and down the empty street. No cars. No footsteps. Just snow and silence. The sensible part of him told him what to do next. Call it in. Follow the procedure. Let the system handle it. But it was Christmas Eve. He knew what that meant. Long waits. Overworked offices. Children shuffled between strangers until morning came. His phone vibrated in his pocket. A message from his mother, checking if he'd made it home safely. He imagined his daughter, Mia, warm at her grandparents' house 2 hours away, 10 years old, curled under quilts, safe. What if it were her sitting on those steps? Noah exhaled slowly. His breath rose in a cloud and vanished. "Are you cold?" he asked. The girl with the tired eyes nodded. Once. The other didn't move at all. "Okay," Noah said. "Let's get you somewhere warm." He pulled off his gloves and typed a quick message to his mother, letting her know he might be late. He took note of the time, the location, every detail. He wasn't hiding this. He just wasn't walking away. Carefully, he draped his coat over both girls. They flinched at the contact, then leaned into the warmth without realizing it. Their shoulders were stiff, their bodies trembling beneath the thin fabric. Noah opened the door of his old truck and helped them inside. One at a time. They were lighter than he expected. Too light. He turned the heat all the way up and waited until the air began to warm. Neither girl spoke as he drove. They sat pressed together in the back seat, eyes wide, watching him through the mirror. Noah recognized that look. He had worn it himself once, after the night his wife Rachel didn't come home. The drive to his apartment was slow. The snow came down harder, the road slick beneath the tires. When he finally parked, Noah sat still for a moment, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. "Come on," he said softly. "We're here." His apartment was small but clean. A narrow living room, a worn couch, A tiny Christmas tree in the corner, its ornaments crooked and mismatched. It wasn't much, but it was warm. Noah put a pot on the stove and heated soup while the girls sat together on the couch, still wrapped in his coat. He watched them from the kitchen, noticing how they jumped at every sound, how they stayed perfectly still, as if afraid of being noticed. When the soup was ready, they ate slowly at first, then faster, as if afraid it might disappear. Noah pretended not to notice the way. One of them wiped her tears with the back of her hand after the first spoonful. He fetched blankets from the closet and tucked them in on the couch. The girls lay side by side, curled into each other, exhaustion pulling their eyelids down. As Noah turned off the lights, one of them reached for his sleeve. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded, unable to speak.
Moments later.
As the apartment settled into quiet, the same girl stirred beneath the blanket. Her voice drifted out, soft and uncertain. "Snow is a promise," she said. Noah froze. Rachel used to say that. Every winter, every storm. She would tell Mia that snow meant something good was coming, even if it took time to see it. Noah stood there in the dim light, the weight of the night pressing in on him. Outside, the snow continued to fall. Inside, two lost children slept on his couch. And for the first time in a long while, Noah felt the door to something he thought was gone begin to open. Morning arrived quietly. Pale winter light slipped through the thin curtains of Noah's apartment, settling gently on the small living room where the Christmas tree still blinked, stubborn and hopeful. Outside, the snow had softened into a smooth white blanket, untouched and bright. Noah woke with a start, disoriented for a moment, his neck stiff from sleeping in the armchair. Then he remembered. The couch, the blankets, the two small shapes curled together beneath them. Faith and Joy were still asleep, their faces relaxed in a way they hadn't been the night before. Noah watched their steady breathing for a long moment before standing. He moved slowly, careful not to wake them, and started the coffee. A soft knock sounded at the door. Noah frowned. No one ever knocked on Christmas morning. When he opened it, Mia stood there in her winter coat, a backpack slung over one shoulder, her cheeks pink from the cold. Her grandparents' car idled at the curb behind her. "Surprise," she said, smiling. "Grandma thought I should be home for Christmas breakfast." Noah's chest tightened. "Hey, kiddo." Mia stepped inside, stamping snow from her boots. Her smile faded as she noticed the couch. Two unfamiliar girls. Two small pairs of shoes by the door. She didn't ask questions right away. She just walked closer and lowered herself to their level, the way Noah had taught her years ago. "Hi," she said softly. Faith stirred first, blinking awake. Joy followed, clutching the blanket. Their bodies tensed the moment they realized someone new was there. "My name's Mia," Mia said, sitting cross-legged on the floor. "I live here." There was no fear in her voice, no pressure, just fact. "I'm Faith," the older girl whispered after a moment. Joy didn't speak. She pressed closer to her sister. "That's okay," Mia said, as if Joy had answered anyway. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to." Noah watched from the kitchen, something warm and unfamiliar spreading through his chest. Mia had always been like this, gentle without trying, kind without being told. He set out bowls and poured milk while the girls sat at the small table. The kitchen felt smaller with more people in it, but also fuller, like it had been waiting. Joy's hands shook as she lifted her glass. A second later, it tipped. Milk spilled across the table and splashed onto the floor. Joy froze. "I'm sorry," she gasped, scrambling backward. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Her breath came fast and shallow. Tears welled up, spilling over as she covered her head with her arms. Noah felt the familiar pull of exhaustion rise in him, a reflex, sharp and unfair. He closed his eyes for half a second and let it pass. "Hey," he said quietly, kneeling. "It's okay. It's just milk." Joy shook her head harder, her whole body trembling. Mia moved first. She grabbed a towel from the counter and knelt beside Joy, wiping the floor in slow, deliberate motions. "See," Mia said. "No big deal. We spill stuff all the time." Joy peeked out from behind her arms, searching their faces, waiting for anger that never came. Faith reached for her sister's hand. Noah stayed where he was, his voice steady. "You're not in trouble. Accidents happen here." Slowly, Joy's breathing eased. Later, after breakfast, Noah stepped into the hallway and made the call he'd been putting off. "Officer Reyes," the man answered. Noah explained the situation carefully. Where he'd found the girls. What time. What he'd done since. He didn't skip anything. "You did the right thing calling," Reyes said. "I'll come by later today. We'll take it step by step." Noah thanked him and hung up, feeling the weight of the day settle onto his shoulders. As he turned back toward the kitchen, his phone buzzed again. A text message. "Don't dig into Ellington. Some doors stay closed for a reason." No number he recognized. No name. Just the message. Noah stared at the screen. A chill crept up his spine that had nothing to do with the cold outside. He looked around the apartment at Mia helping Faith color. At the table, at Joy watching from a cautious distance. Who would send that? And why now? He slipped the phone into his pocket without saying anything. Later, while the girls rested on the couch, Noah gathered their clothes to wash them. The dresses were thin, worn, too small for winter. As he turned one of Faith's coats inside out, his fingers brushed something stiff in the lining. He frowned and felt again. A seam poorly stitched. Deliberate. Noah eased it open and pulled out a folded photograph. A woman smiled out at him, tired but radiant, holding 2 newborn babies, wrapped in identical blankets. On the back, in faded ink, were the words, "Ellington Home, 2019. Noah's pulse quickened. That name again. He glanced toward the living room. Faith and Joy slept side by side now, their faces peaceful in a way that felt hard-won. Noah folded the photo and slipped it into his pocket. "I won't let you disappear again," he whispered. Outside, the snow reflected the pale morning light, and somewhere beyond it, answers were waiting. Ellington Home stood at the edge of town where the sidewalks thinned and the streetlights grew farther apart. The building was older than Noah expected, its paint peeled and blistered by years of harsh winters. A wooden sign hung above the front steps, the letters faded and uneven, creaking softly as the cold wind pushed it back and forth. The windows were boarded from the outside. The front gate leaned on one hinge. Everything about the place suggested it had been forgotten. And yet, as Noah parked his truck and stepped out into the cold, he noticed a thin line of light glowing behind one of the downstairs windows. He hesitated at the bottom of the steps. Snow crunched beneath his boots as he climbed, his breath fogging the air. He knocked once, then again, not expecting an answer. The door opened slowly. An elderly woman stood there, wrapped in a thick sweater, her silver hair pulled into a neat bun. Her eyes were sharp, alert, and steady, the kind that missed very little. "Yes?" she asked. "My name is Noah Carter," he said. I'm sorry to bother you. I found something that led me here." She studied him for a long moment before opening the door wider. "Come in," she said simply. Inside, the building smelled faintly of old wood and lemon cleaner. The light came from a single lamp, near the reception desk, its shade yellowed with age. Noah could see the scars of the fire now, darkened patches on the walls, places where the paint had bubbled and cracked.
"I'm Margaret Ellington,"
the woman said. "Most people just call me Ms. Ellington." Noah reached into his jacket and pulled out the photograph. "Do you recognize her?" Ms. Ellington took the photo with trembling hands. The moment her eyes fell on it, her breath caught. "Oh," she whispered. "Evelyn." Noah felt his stomach drop. "You knew her?" "She lived here for nearly a year," Ms. Ellington said, lowering herself into a chair. "She came to us scared, exhausted, carrying more weight than any young woman should have to bear alone." She glanced up at Noah. "I lost my daughter a long time ago," she added quietly. "After that, This place became my way of staying alive. Every child who walked through that door mattered to me. Evelyn mattered. Ms. Ellington traced the edge of the photograph. With one finger. She was gentle, always apologizing for taking up space. She used to sing softly to her girls at night, even when she was bone-tired. Said it helped them sleep. Noah swallowed. Her daughters are with me now. Ms. Ellington's eyes filled. Then maybe some prayers do get answered. She leaned back, her gaze distant. The night of the fire, she said slowly. Evelyn was here. So was another woman. A volunteer who stayed late. Noah felt his heart begin to race. Rachel, Ms. Ellington said. The name hit him like a blow. My wife, Noah whispered. Ms. Ellington nodded. Rachel Carter. She came by after her shift. Said she wanted to help put the children to bed because it was Christmas week. Noah gripped the edge of the desk to steady himself. She was the last person to speak with Evelyn. Ms. Ellington continued. I remember it clearly. They stood right there. She pointed to the corner near the stairwell. Evelyn was afraid. Rachel told her she wasn't alone, that she was stronger than she thought. Ms. Ellington rose and disappeared into a back room. When she returned, she held an envelope, yellowed and worn at the edges. This arrived for Rachel. A few days before the fire, she said. I never got the chance to give it to her. After everything that happened, I didn't know who it belonged to anymore. But I kept it. She placed it gently in Noah's hands. The envelope was addressed in careful handwriting. Rachel Carter. Noah's fingers shook as he took it. Thank you, he said, though the words felt too small. Outside, snow had begun to fall again by the time Noah returned to his truck. He sat behind the wheel, the envelope resting on his lap, the building's dim light glowing behind him. He opened it slowly. The letter inside was dated December 21st. Rachel, if something happens to me, please tell my girls that I tried. Tell them I loved them every single day. Tell them that when the snow falls, it's a promise that good things are coming, even when the world feels cold. Noah couldn't read any further. Tears blurred the words as the weight of it all pressed down on him. Rachel, Evelyn, two women who had crossed paths in one night, bound by kindness and courage. Noah folded the letter carefully and held it against his chest. The snow fell harder now, covering the road, the town, the past. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't chance. It was a promise waiting to be kept. The Crosswell building was quieter than usual that night. Most of the offices were dark, their doors locked, their desks abandoned until after the holidays. Noah moved through the hallways with his cart, the soft squeak of its wheels echoing against polished floors. Outside the tall windows, snow drifted past in slow, steady lines, catching the glow of the city lights far below. He was halfway through the executive level when he noticed the light. The glass-walled conference room at the end of the corridor was lit bright white, stark against the surrounding darkness. Inside, a woman stood alone at the long table, her back straight, her hands braced on the surface as she stared down at a spread of old folders and papers. Noah slowed. He recognized her immediately. Vivian Cross, the CEO. He had seen her picture in company emails and annual reports, her expression always composed, untouchable. But the woman standing behind the glass didn't look like that. Her shoulders were tense. Her head was bowed, as if the weight of the pages in front of her were pressing her down. Noah hesitated, then pushed his cart quietly past. A few minutes later, he returned with a paper cup of tea from the break room. He set it gently on the table just inside the doorway, along with a folded scrap of paper. Snow is a promise. He didn't knock. He didn't speak. He just left it there and went back to his work. Vivian noticed the tea several minutes later. She stared at the cup, then at the note beneath it. Her breath caught. The words pulled her, somewhere she hadn't meant to go. She remembered her sister standing at the window of Ellington home years ago, watching the snow fall with a sad, hopeful smile. Remembered how close she'd come to staying, how close she'd come to being one of the ones who didn't make it out. Vivian closed her eyes. When she opened them again, Noah was pushing his cart past the room. She stepped out into the hallway. "Excuse me," she said. Noah stopped. He turned slowly, unsure whether he should speak first. "Did you leave this?" Vivian asked, holding up the note. "Yes," Noah said. "I'm sorry if that wasn't appropriate." Vivian studied him for a moment. "Why did you write it?" Noah considered lying. It would have been easier. But something in her expression, tired, guarded, human, made him choose. "Otherwise, because someone once said it to me," he said. "And it mattered." Vivian nodded, as if that answer made sense. "You're Noah Carter," she said. "You work nights." "Yes, ma'am." "Vivian," she corrected gently. "And you don't have to call me that." They stood there in the bright hallway, the distance between them defined less by status than by uncertainty. "You've been looking into Ellington home," Vivian said. Noah felt his shoulders tighten. "Yes." She didn't accuse. She didn't threaten. She just asked, "Why?" "My wife volunteered there," Noah said. "And 2 children ended up on my doorstep. I'm trying to make sure they're safe." Vivian absorbed that quietly. Then she gestured toward the conference room. "Come in." Inside, the papers on the table were neatly arranged, old grant proposals, inspection reports, photographs of the building before the fire. "My sister stayed at Ellington," Vivian said. "She left a few weeks before the fire. She called me that night. Told me she was finally ready to start over." Her voice softened. "When I heard what happened, all I could think about were the people who stayed behind." Noah nodded. He understood that feeling too. "Well, there are procedures," Vivian continued, her tone sharpening slightly. "Laws, safeguards. If you're involved with those children, everything has to be done the right way." "I know," Noah said. "That's what I want." A voice cleared behind them. Mr. Collins, the head of security, stood in the doorway, his face lined with tension. "That message," he said, looking at Noah. "The one about Ellington. I sent it." Noah's jaw tightened. Vivian turned sharply. "You had no right," she said. "I was trying to protect this building," Collins replied. "And myself. Every time Ellington comes up, people start asking questions no one wants to answer." Noah met his gaze. "I'm not here to make trouble." Collins looked at him for a long moment, then nodded once. "I see that now." The tension in the room eased slightly, like a knot loosening. Vivian turned back to Noah. "I can help," she said, "but only if we do this by the book. No shortcuts." Noah felt something shift. Inside him, relief, gratitude, cautious hope. "That's all I want," he said. Outside the glass walls, snow continued to fall, quiet and steady. 2 people who had spent years carrying their losses alone stood together, choosing carefully to trust. The regional hospital sat on a low hill beyond the city, its brick exterior softened by falling snow. Inside, the air was warm and faintly scented with antiseptic and brewed coffee. The halls were quieter than Noah expected, as if the building itself knew it was Christmas. Vivian walked beside him, her steps measured, her coat folded neatly over her arm. She hadn't spoken much since the drive began. Neither had he. Some moments asked for silence. They stopped at the nurse's station on the long-term care floor. A woman with kind eyes and soft lines around her mouth looked up from her chart. "You must be Noah," she said gently.
I'm Hannah.
She shook Vivian's hand, then turned back to Noah. "I've been with her a long time. We call her Jane Doe, but—" She hesitated. "I always believed she had a name somewhere." Noah nodded. "We think we know it now." Hannah smiled, the kind of smile that carried patience and years of care. "She's having a good morning. Clearer than usual. Let's take this slow." Room 304 was bathed in pale light. Snow drifted past the wide window, quiet and steady. A woman sat in a chair beside it, her hands folded in her lap, her gaze fixed on the white world outside. She was thinner than Noah imagined. Fragile. But there was something familiar in the line of her jaw, in the slope of her shoulders. Evelyn. Noah stopped just inside the door. Vivian remained a step behind him, her presence steady, grounding. "Good morning," Hannah said softly. "You have visitors." The woman turned. Her eyes moved from Hannah to Noah, then to Vivian. Confusion flickered, followed by a cautious curiosity. Noah stepped forward slowly and knelt in front of her, keeping his voice low and calm. He took the photograph from his jacket pocket and held it out with both hands. "Do you recognize this?" he asked. The woman stared at the image for a long moment. Her fingers lifted, trembling, and touched the edge of the photograph. Her breath hitched. "My babies," she whispered. The words were barely audible, but they landed with the weight of truth. Tears welled in her eyes as she pulled the photo closer, pressing it to her chest. Her shoulders shook. Hannah placed a gentle hand on her arm, grounding her. Noah didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stayed where he was, letting the moment unfold in its own time. "They're alive," he said finally. "They're safe." Evelyn looked at him, then really looked at him. "They waited," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Noah replied. "They did." A doctor entered quietly, introducing himself and observing the scene with professional care. After a few moments, he pulled Noah and Vivian aside. "This is a significant emotional breakthrough," he said, "but it also carries risk. Her memories are returning in fragments. Too much, too fast could overwhelm her." Vivian nodded. "What do you recommend?" "Short visits. Familiar objects. Consistency," the doctor said. "And time." Back in the room, Evelyn had calmed slightly, her breathing slower. She looked up at Noah again. "Rachel," she said softly, "did she make it?" The question hung in the air. Noah felt his chest tighten. He looked at Hannah, at Vivian, then back at Evelyn. He didn't answer. Outside the window, the snow continued to fall, quiet and unrelenting. The reunion did not happen all at once. It took meetings, careful planning, and the steady presence of professionals who understood that healing followed its own clock. Brooke Sato, the family attorney Vivian had brought in, spoke calmly about guardianship steps and supervised contact. A licensed therapist outlined what the children might feel: confusion, fear, hope tangled together, and how to move through it without breaking what had only just begun to mend. Noah listened. He asked questions. He took notes. Outside that careful circle, the world kept talking. In the apartment complex, neighbors lowered their voices when Noah passed. Some nodded politely. Others looked away. A few stared too long. Curiosity edged with suspicion. Noah felt it in his shoulders when he took out the trash, in the way conversations stopped when he entered the laundry room. He reminded himself why he was doing this. He went on. One evening, in the building's common room, Joy grew overwhelmed by the noise of a holiday gathering and froze near the doorway. Her hands clenched, her breathing quick. Noah knelt beside her without a word, matching her breath to his, waiting. He didn't rush. He didn't coax. He stayed. Mr. Collins, passing by on his security rounds, saw the moment unfold. He watched Noah give Joy his jacket, watched her slowly relax, watched Faith come closer, anchoring her sister. Collins stopped in the hallway long after he meant to. The next morning, Collins knocked on Noah's door. "I was wrong," he said, not meeting Noah's eyes at first. "About the message. About everything." He took a breath. "If there's a statement needed about your conduct, your care, I'll give it. I'll say what I saw." Noah nodded, the tightness in his chest easing. "Thank you." When the day came, it was quiet. No cameras. No announcements. Just the small living room, the couch pulled closer to the window, the yellow lamp casting a soft circle of light. The therapist sat nearby, unobtrusive. Brooke observed from the kitchen table, papers neatly stacked. Vivian stood in the hallway out of sight, giving the room back to those who needed it most. Evelyn arrived with Hannah, the nurse she trusted. She moved slowly, carefully, as if each step mattered. Faith and Joy waited together on the couch, their hands linked. Noah knelt between them. "You can take your time," he said. "Everyone's here." Evelyn stopped a few feet away. She didn't rush forward. She didn't speak. She simply opened her arms and waited. Joy was the first to move. One step, then another. Faith followed, her grip tightening as if she needed proof this was real. Evelyn's breath caught when they reached her. She knelt, gathering them gently, her hands shaking as she rested them against their backs. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She whispered their names, again and again, like a prayer. "I'm here," she said. "I'm here." Tears fell quietly. The therapist watched, nodding once. This was right. This was enough. From the hallway, Vivian leaned against the wall and let the sound of breathing, of soft sobs, fill the space where her own memories lived. She stayed back. She chose not to be seen. Later, when the girls slept, Faith's head tucked under Evelyn's chin, Joy's hand curled around her. Mother's sleeve, Noah stepped into the hallway. Vivian straightened. He didn't smile. He didn't thank her. "You didn't save us," he said softly. "You stood with us." Vivian nodded, her eyes bright. Outside, snow fell again, steady and quiet, as a family began to find its way home. 6 months later, the snow returned gently, as if it had learned to fall without urgency. The Promise House initiative existed now, though not in the way headlines like to describe things. It wasn't a large building or a sweeping solution. It was a renovated 2-story home near the edge of town, its rooms freshly painted, its permits approved after weeks of back and forth, its budget trimmed and revised until only what truly mattered remained. It had almost not happened. The hearings were long. The questions were cautious. Funding committees asked for projections, timelines, measurable outcomes. Some neighbors worried about noise. Others worried about safety. A few worried about property values. The doubts were practical, not cruel, but they pressed in all the same. On the night of the final vote, Noah sat at the small table facing the community board, his hands folded, his notes untouched. When it was his turn, he stood. "I'm not good at speeches," he said simply. "I don't have a background in programs or development." He looked around the room, meeting eyes without holding them too long. 6 months ago, I was walking home from a convenience store. It was cold. The street was empty. I almost didn't stop. He paused. "Let the truth settle. I didn't fix anything that night. I didn't solve a system or change a policy. I just stopped. I stayed. And that made room for other people to do the right thing too." Noah nodded once, as if to himself. "That's all this place is meant to be. A place where stopping is allowed." He sat down. The vote passed by a narrow margin. The funding was modest. Enough to open. Enough to try. It was more than enough. On Christmas Eve, 1 year after that first snowfall, Promise House glowed softly. Against the dusk, white lights framed the porch. The windows shone warm and steady. Snow dusted the steps but didn't cling. Faith and Joy raced across the small yard, their laughter light and unburdened, boots kicking up powder as they chased each other in wide, looping circles. They were taller now, louder, certain in ways they hadn't been before. Evelyn stood nearby, wrapped in a wool coat, watching them with a smile that carried both joy and memory. Healing had been careful and uneven, but it had come. Slowly, truly. Mia stood on a stepladder near the front window, hanging a paper star she'd folded herself. She adjusted it twice, then smiled with quiet satisfaction. Noah joined Vivian by the porch railing. She leaned into him, natural now, unafraid of the simplicity of it. There were no cameras, no speeches, just breath in the cold air and the sound of children at play. "Hard to believe," Vivian said softly. Noah nodded. "I know." Inside, the kettle whistled. Someone called for cocoa. Snow continued to fall, light and patient. Noah looked out at the scene, The house, the people, the warmth spilling into the night, and felt the quiet certainty settle in his chest. Sometimes the world changes not because someone is powerful, but because someone chose to stop.